I'd like to say thank you to Pastor at 180 Church, Renzo Seward, and the advocate, Raymond Jackson, for bringing HUD here to discuss problems that the city of Detroit is having with funding, and especially Section 3. Thank you.
Keep it real, what contractors really do is they try to say, well, how can I skirt around what qualifies for best efforts? So I can prove that I paid best efforts and still not have to use a Section 3 worker. Right? So if we want to, so I'm here to tell y'all the real, right? So I'm going to tell you the real. And
yeah.
So where I think the communication gap lies is really the trust that the Section 3 worker is just as good as anybody else. That the relationship there exists, and that trust needs to be developed over time, because money flows to the least amount of risk. And if people think that Section 3 workers and businesses are a risk to production, well then you're going to find ways to get around it.
You know, government housing was never meant to be a hammock. It was always intended to be a trampoline. And to be honest with you, I think that's why we're here. That's why we're here talking about Section 3. And I said it at the end of the last session, like goofy government employees talking sections, right? Section 3, Section 8, Section 9. Like, what is it though, right? And it was written into the law in the federal and the Housing and Urban Development Law of 1968, Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, essentially saying that if HUD funding is coming into your community, it will hire from that community. However, the greatest extent feasible has been utilized essentially as a loophole over the years. So, but what does that mean? So people are saying, hey, we tried, we couldn't find anybody. So what we're trying to do now is we're here to listen. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here for you to tell us what to do, right? And how we can make this stuff work for your communities, right? For the communities that HUD serves. We spent all day yesterday traveling Detroit. We went up through 8 Mile, we came down through, I don't even know the name of your neighborhoods, Morningside or Morningside Heights or something, and then we kind of came down to Corktown. But, you know, we saw adaptive reuse of a former Catholic school. We saw project development in the Corktown neighborhood, and then we went to the Genesco site outside of the city doing modular development. And what I saw, it was essentially a trip through time, right? We saw what Detroit looked like in 1950. We saw what Detroit looked like in 1970. We saw what Detroit looked like in the year 2000, 2020, and now I think we started to see what Detroit's going to look like in 2040. And I said yesterday, when you hit rock bottom, the only place you can go is up. And you know, it's looking more and more like Detroit is frankly on the way up. But here today, we're here to talk about how we can connect all of you, you know, with your HUD dollars, right? That's your funding, that's your tax dollars that comes back into your communities, and how can we connect you with the opportunities? And we'll get into that a little bit later with establishment of an opportunity portal and a business registry, which will allow people and then come back to us. And that's what really this conversation, you know, is about. I want to recognize Sham. Sham is from our faith-based office at HUD, and he's essentially doing a lot of work around the country. We do have our national team here. So I am from Philadelphia, but I'm based out of Washington, D.C. I also represent HUD's Region 3, which is Pennsylvania through West Virginia. But we have our leader from Boston. We have our leader from New York. We have our leaders from Atlanta, Chicago, Fort Worth, Kansas City, Denver, Seattle, and Los Angeles in this, and they're all back here today, and they're here to listen and to learn from you all. Again, this is a listening session for a reason. We're not here to dictate, we're here to listen. And speaking of listening, I want to bring up our next guy.